Hey, love, I'm going to give you the secret to manifesting your specific person right here and right now, regardless of your circumstances, regardless of what has happened in the past. And it all has to do with this concept of of a self fulfilling prophecy, or at a basic notion, your assumptions are creating your reality. Because if we continuously, let's say we desire a specific person to show up in a certain way, love us, care about us, text us, all of this, but all of our assumptions are not matching that. In that case, it's actually physically impossible to see anything different happen in our reality. Because most of the time, and this is the secret that's going to change everything, is we become or accidentally become in reaction to our reality, meaning that we're waiting on things to show up outside of us before we can see it within or before we can assume it. So basically, think of the idea that maybe our specific person isn't texting us all the time and we want them to. We know we need to match our assumptions to that state, but most of us think, I'm not going to match that assumption until I see it outside of me, right? But then it just creates this self fulfilling prophecy because you can't see or interact with or manifest anything that is outside of your assumption. So if we're assuming our specific person is someone who doesn't want to text us all the time, that's the only thing that we can actually see. And if we don't push outside of this cycle and assume it first, we're going to be constantly and perpetually stuck in that state. Meaning that at some point, and I always use this idea of a cycle of we assume something, it gets reflected, and then we can either use this to support our original idea or we can stop it right there. And I've given examples of how people have stopped this downward cycle back to support their original idea, like basically stopped it, said, no, that's not my reality, and literally manifested instantaneously, because your reality is a reflection of you, not in the opposite. You don't believe your specific person doesn't text you because they don't text you because you believe that they don't text you. And so again, this concept of a self-fulfilling prophecy, or our assumptions becoming reality, becomes super apparent. For example, I've seen this actually stated multiple times in coaching sessions of, it's so hard to feel as if or assume the state since my specific person is reacting in a way I don't want outside of ourselves. Or sometimes we think that it just doesn't make sense, right? That I need this outward or external validation in order to feel it. But again, this is not true because it is entirely a reflection. And every single thing that you do, no matter what it is, no matter if you're manifesting a specific person, learning to play the piano, or going to college, you must be doing and assuming the state before you achieve it. Because the example I actually used in an email coaching session was to think about going to get food. Okay, let's say you're really hungry and you want to go get food. At this point in time, whether you're ordering it, waiting for it, going to a restaurant, no matter what, you're feeling hunger the whole time. And at any point along the journey, you could state, is this even working? I'm still feeling hungry, right? You could quit based on that whole idea. But you know that your assumption of assuming that this restaurant's going to make you food creates that reality. And if you can see the metaphor, it relates to our specific person as well. Along the journey, we feel a certain way, but we can't push past it like we would in every other situation that we would have. So basically, if we're not feeling good right now, that's okay, because Neville Goddard would state that a desire is meant to be with you. The reason you have the desire is a gift for creating exactly what you want. And here's even a quote from Neville Goddard I wanted to include in this video. And it is, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and observe the route that your attention follows. But keep in mind, this is if we're feeling like we're having a hard time manifesting, this is actually what we're doing in the opposite. Okay, we're actually assuming something negative and our attention is following that negative thing. And so you can forever be stuck in something not so good, or also stuck in something really good, because once you assume the state, you're going to find your attention kind of, my mom wants to say reimburses, but I don't think that's the word for it, but I guess supports this new idea. So when you're assuming my specific person doesn't text me, that's where your attention follows and it continuously supports it. But if you say my specific person texts me all the time, that's where your attention goes instead. But I really, really would strongly suggest thinking about the concept that when we're hungry, we go and get food, even though we are feeling hungry because of the assumption of what we feel is going to happen at the end. And this is truly the secret to manifestation. And I know it sounds simple, it sounds easy, but every single goal, you've heard me say this before, every single goal you're ever going to accomplish has to be unseen before it is seen, meaning that we must be in a state of not having it before we do. And your specific person is no different. Now, a lot of times people do get into a state of thinking that because we're not feeling good with our manifestation, that means things are going horribly wrong. But I can tell you multiple times, time and time again, I guarantee you your situation is going so much better than you could ever imagine because we accidentally create these illusions for ourselves. Because remember, everyone and everything outside of you is taking you to your manifestation, no matter what it is, right? It's always positive. It's always taking you to abundance. But we can trick ourselves into thinking that it is not that way. And that's literally anytime you experience a negative or bad outcome, you are literally in an illusion. And what I always like to state about negativity, because it's just something I definitely want to reiterate in my videos because it shows how powerful you are, is that negativity is like darkness, right? Darkness isn't real. It has no substance. It's just this lack of light. So anytime we're experiencing something negative, it's literally because our mind is in a specific state and we have the inability to see outside of that state once we're in it. But the same thing goes with the positive. When you are in a positive state, that's what begins to manifest. That's what begins to be created around you. And it's really that simple. And the more we kind of support positive states that our specific person loves us, cares for us, regardless of what is happening, that's how we're going to get where we want to go. But again, the opposite creates a cycle. When we are assuming we're trying to change our specific person or change our reality, we're actually not making any changes within. But it always is ourselves that is going to change our external reality. It's really basically, and you've heard this before, like trying to change your outfit by going into a mirror. Your reality is a mirror. Your external reality is just reflecting who you are. So if you don't like what you're seeing, it's only because us ourselves are reflecting or perpetuating that. And that's when this idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy comes in. It's basically talking about how you can't see, you can't experience, you can't feel anything that you are not assuming on your reality. And this actually has a couple really, really cool kind of situations, and I can give you an example for your own situation with manifesting your specific person. But there's actually a study about a teacher and students where they took a bunch of students and they told the teacher, here are the students that excel and are geniuses, and here are the students that suffer and are not very bright. So do with that what you will. And at the end of the semester or the school year, they tracked these students' grades and found that everyone who they told the teacher was a genius increased their grades. Everyone who told, or basically the separation was the geniuses were the highest in the class and the not so bright students were the lowest. But here's the kicker. Every student coming in, which what they did not tell the teacher, had the same exact GPA, the same exact intelligence. They literally picked these students for this and randomly picked, you're going to be a genius, you're not, you're going to be neutral. And then they literally randomly picked all of those. But at the end of the year, the teacher's assumptions began to create and sustain a reality. And I can even give you an example that goes even closer to home with manifesting a specific person. Imagine you go on a date. And it's funny because this is going to be totally within your imagination. I'm not adding anything new. This is something that you already know. Imagine going on a date with your specific person and you assume the entire time that they dislike you. Okay? How do you feel you're going to act? How do you feel you're going to react to certain things that occur, right? If they say, hey, how's it going? What's your reaction? If they say, hey, I really like that dress, how's your reaction, assuming that they don't like you? You may assume that they're sarcastic or they're doing something mean or rude, right? But the opposite will be the case if you assume that they like you. If you're assuming that someone really, really likes you, now they say, I like your dress. How do you feel then? Now you feel really abundant, really happy, really confident. The version of yourself that goes into this date knowing they like you is really confident. And the version of yourself that goes into this date knowing that they don't like you is very non-confident. So I know these are very logical or physical examples, but it shows and can cause your mind to truly believe it, because when we can connect to these physical ideas or have it make sense at a very simple level, it's going to make sense in the grand scheme of things. Because literally, and I know we all have these ideas, these fears, these worries, everything like that. Everything is a reflection of your internal state, even at a very basic level of this self-fulfilling prophecy. If you assume my SP doesn't like me, you know that individual or version of yourself acts much different on a date as compared to the version of yourself that knows that their SP is absolutely in love with them, right? You would know, if you were to imagine two outcomes of two versions of you, those two dates would go so differently. And all you have to do is think about it. And the crazy thing is all of this was already within your imagination right here and right now. So what I want you to do is begin assuming that your specific person is already exactly what you want. Assume and look for the positives. That's why I always tell people to create success journals, right? It's like when you look for the positive, you look for the successes, you begin to create more of it. Because I know it feels hard sometimes to assume the state before everything, but again, that's what you do with everything. Think of your lunch today. You're going to feel hungry and then you're going to get food. You don't get food and then you feel hungry, or the opposite. You don't, right? Anyway, you don't eat and then you go and get food. You go to get food while you're hungry and then you eat. It's almost like I joke about this a while ago in one of my videos. It's kind of like, do you go to the grocery store when your cabinets are empty, or do you go to the grocery store once they become full, right? It's like, obviously, if we were waiting for our cabinets to become full before we go to the grocery store, we're in an infinite cycle where we're going to be like, what's going on? I can't manifest. My cabinets are just getting even emptier and emptier. And that's what we're doing with our specific person. But begin assuming it first and foremost, and you're going to see a huge, huge world of difference. And I can even throw in a quick example from a coaching session. This person assumed a difference and saw a change in their reality. So they wrote, as far as my SP goes, we're back together as of last Friday. He spent the night and told me he loves me. This is the power of assuming first. And you can see that was literally just a few days ago. But you do not deny the power that you have to create anything that you want in your reality. But it does become, or it is all in this concept of overcoming these fears, overcoming these beliefs. Because technically, I would say all of this, you already know this, right? You knew the two versions of yourself and how they would react and the outcomes of them on a date. So this is all actually based in a fear of rejection or even a fear of success. Because if you know for a fact you can get your specific person by doing the same thing you've done with everything else in your reality, we'd have to ask, well, what's our deal? Why are we not instantly assuming it right here and right now? And then we'll have to know that the reason we're not is just because we know for a fact we can succeed. So I know that sounds crazy, but you know for a fact you can succeed right here and right now. And if you know absolutely without a doubt that you are going to implement this and you are going to manifest your specific person overnight, leave a thumbs up on this video or just like the video. If you did have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. And remember, you can also reach out to me on my website at kyleaugustcoaching.com. Thank you so much for stopping by today and hanging out with me. And I can't wait to see you in my next video tomorrow.